Hello, we are in the third lesson. Our lesson is about family problems and ways to solve them. So far, we have presented 3 verses from the Quran about the family. Now, I bring the first verse to your attention, dear friends. This is the 19th verse of Surah An-Nisa. وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ فَإِنْ كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَنْ تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Translation. Addresses men again in this verse. Treat her fairly. If you happen to dislike her, you may hate something which Allah turns into a great blessing. This verse also advises men to be kind to their wives. He says to be kind to your wives, be kind to them, do not hurt them. Make them feel happy when they live with you. This verse touches on a very subtle nuance. What is this? He says that if there is a disagreement between a man and his wife, they should not decide to divorce immediately. Why? Because there may be something disagreements in life and family, relationships. The husband and wife should approach it normally, should not get angry and decide to divorce. Then, in the continuation of the verse, he gives an argument for this. He says that you may decide to divorce immediately, but God forbids. Sometimes a person may make the wrong decision because he does not know his future of his life. Sometimes a person can be happy if he is patient with something he does not like. The same is true of the family. This verse says that a person may not like any of his spouse's characteristics, but if he is patient, God will bless the family. In short, it conveys to us a serious principle of life. We have very little information about our lives and ourselves. Let's not make a quick decision. Let's be a little patient. Let's analyze. Divorce is easy, but there are many consequences, bad consequences. We must take into account the psychological traumas, the trauma that they can get from this divorce if they have children in the family. Modern psychologist Daniel Kahneman has a very valuable work, Thinking Fast and Slow. In this book, he analyzes how a person decided in different situations. In that book, Kahneman says that man works in one of 2 systems when making decisions. System 1 and System 2. The first system is instantaneous and spontaneous decisions. This system, 2 deliberate decisions. Kahneman writes that people often decide on the first system in life. That is, their decisions are instantaneous. They do not think seriously about their decisions. They fall victim to some kind of emotions. Kahneman says that even big businessmen and politicians sometimes make those sudden decisions and make big mistakes in their lives. When I read verse 10 of Surah An-Nisa from Quran, I remembered this thesis of Kahneman. This verse addresses men and advises them not to immediately decide to divorce if you see any wrongdoing or mistake in your spouse. Think, be patient, think deeply about the situation after the divorce, analyze and then decide. Divorce is wrong because of a small conflict. In many cases, when a person does not make hasty decision, he can change his mind when he thinks, analyzes, and makes a decision. Modern American psychologist Dan Ariely has a book called Predictable Irrationality. There, he explains a principle of psychology, arousal situation. What is arousal situation in psychology? In some situations, a person may not be able to make logical decisions. For example, when you are hungry, sleepless, when you have a strong sexual desire, when you are depressed, when you are nervous and aggressive. In such cases, a person should not make a logical decision. He must be patient, get out of these situations, and then make a decision. Because in such cases, these decisions may be illogical, not logical. Look, this verse in the Quran seems to say the same facts. When you see something wrong with your spouse, do not immediately become aggressive and decide to divorce. Be patient. And now I present to you fifth verse of the Quran, dear friends, about the family. Fifth verse, Surah At-Tahrim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. Translation: O believers, protect yourselves and your families from a fire. It's a very interesting fact. Protect yourselves and your families from a fire. This verse addresses another important issue regarding the family. This is family responsibility. In the family, the head of the family should think about the happiness of the family and be responsible for them. The head of the family should not think only of himself and his own well-being. He must work hard to keep his family safe from the fires of hell. This verse says. In general, there are two types of views. Every view is an individualist view in life. What does it mean? That is, a person only protects himself. This is individualism. A person only protects himself and does not help, for example, his neighbor or his friend. Even in a very difficult economic situation, he thinks only of his own well-being. Islam, as a heavenly religion, is against individualism. Islam advises people not only to protect themselves, but also to think of other people. Here is a special emphasis on the family. The head of the family must be attentive to his wife and children, protect them, and meet their material and spiritual needs. The head of the family should know that the family is a serious and heavy responsibility. Family should not be neglected. Unfortunately, in today's market society, family responsibilities have weakened. The modern American political philosopher Michael Sandel has a very valuable book, What Money Can't Buy. He writes in the book that in the last 30-40 years, technological development and the great economics and technological success of the capitalist system have created the impression that everything can be bought with money. However, according to Sandel, this approach is wrong. Why? Because there are some values that are not material in nature and cannot be bought with money. For example, happiness, family values, patriotism, and so on. These values are not material and cannot be bought or sold with money. I agree with Sandel's approach. Moral values have declined in modern society. In modern society, people have become individualists. People prefer to live alone. Man thinks only of his own well-being. I think this is one of the main reasons why the number of divorces is so high. Responsibility is lost in the family. Husband and wife are not spiritually and psychologically close to each other. They are not connected, and as a result, they divorced. Because the main factor that protects the family is not sexual passion, but spiritual bonds. Because passion can be exhausted after a while, but the spiritual bonds are permanent and can be preserved until the end of life. In the book, Sandel cites a family example. He says that if we look at the family only from the material and economic point of view, they can live better if the couple divorces in a few years. That is, their divorce may benefit them financially, but they do not divorce, and many families continue to do so. Why? Because the main issue that protects the family is not material principles, but moral principles. The couple is spiritually connected. Dear friends, third lesson is over. See you in our next lesson. Thank you for your attention.